Welcome to the Up the Planters podcast, the Norwich United podcast, on the 30th of November. I'm here with Paul the Planter, our media officer, and Steve Eastaugh, first team manager. We've got a game coming up on Saturday at home to Newport Pagnell Town in the FA Vase. They're the current holders of the FA Vase, and this promises to be a pretty big game for us. What are your thoughts ahead of that game, Steve?
Yeah, I'd echo that. It's one of the things you want in a cup draw is either a tie that you feel you can easily progress in, although that sometimes can bite you in the backside, or you want a big tie, and I don't think there's a bigger one than getting the holders at home. They're obviously a good side. They're going well in their league campaign again this year. So it will be as tough as it comes for us if we want to progress in the competition.
Presumably you're pretty pleased to reach this stage of the competition.
Yeah, I think with the exception of the FA Cup, certainly at this level of football, you want to do well in every competition that you enter in. And so far this season, we've managed to get past the first round of the Senior Cup, same with the League Cup, and had a pretty good run in the Vase so far, which is nice. Obviously, you're always mindful that it doesn't detract from your league campaign, and I'm guessing that Newport may have found that last year, not being able to get out of their division, but winning the Vase means that extra run of games and rescheduling of those games doesn't always work for you. And we're in a scenario at the moment, not just through the Vase, but we're in a scenario at the moment where when you look at the table, we've got 5 games in hand on most of the teams above us. So we're already playing catch up, and we're not even in the month of December. That does put a little bit of pressure on you and the players, because if you look at the league table, we're not where we want to be. Some of that has come through not getting the results that we want, but a piece of that is certainly down to not having the volume of league games that we would have liked either.
As we reach the last day of November, looking back at the month of November, all home games, 3 1-all draws in the league and 3 victories in the 3 cups. So just your thoughts on recent form, really.
Yeah, well, it depends how you spin it, doesn't it? I mean, Paul's a stats man, so he'll understand that you can portray the data in how you want it. I could sit here and say, well, it was an excellent month because we were unbeaten, or I can say, well, 3 league games, that's 3 out of 9. I think the quality of our performances has been good. The amount of ball we had, and particularly second half displays, we've dominated most of those games in that period. But we haven't had the goal return in terms of killing games off and taking the chances that we've created. And that's something that we need to get better at and need to improve at. But on the flip of that, I can't remember the last, what I would class as a bad performance. Even our last defeat at Mulbarton, arguably one of our best performances of the season in terms of the volume of chances we created, the number of entries we had into the final third, the possession that we had. But of course, we all know that doesn't, by definition and by right, win your games of football. We're certainly feeling that a little bit at the moment. But again, I have to be mindful of there'd be a lot, if we were playing badly, not creating chances and not winning games, then, that is a situation where you might panic a little bit more, but we're not. So I'm still hopeful that little bit will come. And I know that we've got the players to do it. It will come by continually doing the right things and just refining some of our finishing and some of our interplay in and around the 18-yard box, which we have discussions about, and part of that is being able to get regular, consistent performances from players, and sometimes getting regular, consistent sides out as well, which we haven't been so fortunate enough lately to do through a combination of injury, suspension, unavailability, illness. But I'm not going to sit here and moan about that, because that's semi-professional football, and that's the job. So
at this point in the season, obviously, basically over a third of it gone, coming up to halfway through. Obviously, a team sport, but always nice to hear if you've got anyone in particular in mind that you think has been your player of the season so far, and maybe anyone who's particularly surprised you or pleased you with their progress, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know whether I see that differently from fans, because obviously I will work with them in training and have more contact time than just your 90 minutes of football on a Saturday. But I'd have to say, in general, the attitude of the group of players we've got is excellent. I can't remember a scenario that anyone has caused us problems or concerns. So generally, the group we've got want to get better, which is always good as a coach and as a manager, that you're working with players that want to do that. I think notably that the early season form of Albie was exceptional, and what we wanted from him in terms of turning performances into goal return, and we certainly got that. Last month he picked up a little bit of a niggly injury, which has meant he's been playing catch up a little, but still contributing with goals. So I'd say that's been particularly pleasing. But the other one for me, the other two for me, I would say, is two boys who both joined the club last year, completely different circumstances. One in Jordan Buttle, who we signed from Spruson Athletic, and was stepping up three divisions. So we always knew with Jordan that was going to take some time for him to settle and understand the expectations of what he was moving into, and for us to understand him, because it's a two-way process, and for us to understand how he receives information and the load in which we can give him, not in terms of physically, but also mentally in terms of the things we're asking him to do. And a little bit with Jordan in terms of positionally as well, because he can play in a number of different positions, and obviously the requirements in those positions are all slightly different with different nuances. So we've had to be quite patient with him, and he's had to be patient with us, because we've not always been in a position to say, right, keep playing, yeah. And I've been quite mindful to take him out at times, both when he's maybe underperformed and performing at the level, because we just want to make sure that we manage him correctly. But I have to say, his performances since he got himself back into the team in November have been outstanding, to the point where the last 2-3 games unplayable. I'm really pleased for him. Obviously, his challenge now is he's got to keep doing it, and if he continues to play like he has been, it's very, very difficult for me to leave him out of the side. So that's been brilliant. And then the other one would be Harry Pitcher, who I have to keep reminding myself with Harry how young he is, because he's so very mature, does everything that you would want a player to do from a manager perspective. He had a really good pre-season. With his work, he missed a few elements of it, and we had a conversation, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, where we sat down early part of the season when he wasn't in the team, and to be fair, wasn't even getting in some of the squads that we were selecting, about what does the future look like for him. And he rightly said, like, he feels he needs to be playing football. And he does, because, you know, he'd had a very disjointed early part to his career when he left Norwich with a number of injuries, and sort of joined a couple of clubs, and it didn't come off for him. And I said, look, we'll give it a month. We'll see where we're at. Keep working hard in training, and we can look at a loan if we need to get you game time. As football happens, as it always does, I think within 5 days, could have been an injury. I think he got himself back in the team, and he's been outstanding. Playing in a position that, it's difficult to say it won't be his position, because he's playing so well there, but, you know, effectively he's playing at centre half, albeit in a 3, and he's been excellent in terms of the decisions he makes, both with the ball and without the ball, how quick he's able to get out to players, close them down, stop crosses. Aerially, I think he's been exceptional, and his use of the ball for us has been brilliant. So that one has been really pleasing as well, because of what he's had to do and what I've seen him had to do to get to where he is. But he took his chance, Paul. And, you know, I've been in many a situation where players get the chance and they don't take it. And he's not one. And, you know, he's a great lad. You know, he's well thought of in the dressing room. And for him, you know, whatever happens next will be down to him. Because, again, if he keeps playing well, keeps showing, you know, the attributes that he has been, he can operate in 3-4 different positions. And he actually went at the start of this run, went and played, I think it was 2 games in the under-21s. And Richard not only said best player on the pitch, he said amazing attitude, came, did all the right things. So for any young players, I'd use him as an example to say, look, if it's not quite going for you, or you're not in the team, or you feel hard done by, just work harder. Just have a good attitude like that, because when your chance comes, you need to be prepared to take it, and he's done that. And you know, of course, form and performances can go like that, but at the moment, he's certainly on the up, and long may that can continue for him.
Yeah, you mentioned at the beginning, you might see it slightly differently as from the fans' perspective and on the sidelines, but actually the two players you mentioned there, Buttle and Pitcher, have been getting numerous comments in the terrace from all the fans there. Buttle is being compared to Messi every game at the moment. Understandably so. He's just been ridiculous.
I've certainly called him Messi a few times, but I don't know if that's in reference to the Argentinian footballer.
Yeah.
But yeah, unless it's good that it's good that you see that. But in terms of probably the backstories, you probably won't see that. And in terms of what they're doing outside of the 90 minutes of football to culminate in those performances, they're not lads who are stepping down a level, or you do expect that from them. They're boys who we've invested a lot of time in. They've invested a lot of time in us in return. I guess they're the stories that everyone likes, because they're the success stories, and they're two lads that are doing all the right things at the moment and reaping the benefits, as are we, which is a win-win situation.
Yeah, definitely. Pitcher as well has just been an absolute wall, and going both directions, just the full package has been lately. It's been really good.
No, I couldn't agree more.
Carrying on the theme of players in general, we've had another change in the situation to your goalkeepers. Lately, people may have noticed we've got a chap called Billy Johnson who's been playing some games for us. Are you able to tell us a bit more about him and the situation currently?
Yeah, well, Billy was at the club in my first spell as manager. Obviously, he was a really young lad then, 16, 17, and he'd broken into the first team. And then he'd gone away and had some experience at some higher level clubs. I think his last club before us was Braintree, and had a move lined up, a football league club, which unfortunately fell through, and basically found himself in a situation where no club, and he's a local lad, or localish, he's Beccles, and found himself at that club. We in turn found ourselves in a situation where we went from two first team goalkeepers in Ryan Dixon and LV. Ryan needed a little break, so had a month to 6 weeks off just to help him, just to give him some time. And LV got an arm injury. I can't remember which game it was.
I think it was the Newmarket game where he stayed on despite the injury and scored the equaliser, didn't he?
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. So he got an arm injury in that game, which he's been out ever since. So in fairness, it was a little bit fortuitous on our front that we were able to get Billy in, and he I think everyone could see, in terms of the standard of goalkeeper we've got is a good one. He's done really well. Yeah, he's done really well. LV has been back in training now last week. We'll train again tomorrow night. So he's back in contention for selection, which is a healthy position to be in for sure.
You've obviously got a huge commitment at the club to progressing young players. Just wondering if there are any under 21 players who have caught your eye, or who you think might be in line for a debut in the coming months? Yeah,
the under 21 group has done particularly well. It's a tough start to the season as it can be, but the last sort of 6, 7, 8 games they've been excellent and got the results to go with it, which helps, because I think that gives all the boys and the staff just a little bit of confidence. And one of the things that we'd been working on was just trying to get that balance of having 1 or 2 older heads in there that will just help the younger ones come on, and we've got that balance now as well. Obviously, Lenny we know about, and Lenny's been a little bit unfortunate in that he's found his position that he plays a little bit crowded at the moment at first team level, but he's still the one that obviously we very much know can perform at that level, and is one that we continue to develop and work with. Rio Perry has done very, very well. We've just now agreed a contract with him this week. So as a reward for his performances, he's one that technically would definitely be ready for furlough none football. Although he's a little slight at the moment, so he'll continue to grow and fill out and develop. But definitely, will play first team games for this football club. And I've got to say that Sammy and Ansu, who've been scoring lots of goals, again, they've been a little bit unfortunate that they probably haven't been on benches because they've been performing, and that could well happen in December. We're looking at we've had five first team players, 6 if you count Geordie Forbes, who's obviously a little bit longer term, who weren't available Saturday for varying reasons. 4 of those 5 will be back for Saturday. That's happening at a good time for us. We're getting stronger and the group's getting stronger. So there may be a scenario where we look to get a couple of the younger ones out on loan so that they can play at a higher level that will just challenge them and develop them a little bit more. So myself and Toby and Casey have just been having those conversations, and also looking at the under 18 players who, for them, this will be their last year. That actually, do they need to be playing under 18 football anymore? Should we be just using them in the under 21s? And are there under 16s now that we need to start bringing in after Christmas to start training with that under 18 group? So all that work has been going on, and all those conversations are being had on a weekly basis, and that's part of the benefit of one, having good skilled people that know their roles and know youth development, and 2, the investment we've made in making sure that they're dedicated roles, so that is their focus, is to look at those things and develop those players, as opposed to jack of all trades, and yes, things get done, but they don't get done with the precision and the focus that they need to be. And we're, as a football club, we'll certainly be reaping the benefits of that. Maybe not this season, but over the next 2-3 years, I would say that the club is in a very healthy state in terms of the young talent that's coming through the system.
After talking about young talent, to talk about some slightly older talent, your brother and assistant manager, Andrew Eastaugh, has been making several first team appearances recently. Are we likely to see that continue? And how valuable is it having essentially a member of staff on the pitch? Does that help you to get your message across and all that kind of thing?
Well, this is the thing you don't know. I only put him on the pitch just to get him out of my ear. So it's a safe place for him. Look, I mean, as far as Andy's concerned, is it the ideal plan? Well, probably not, because he is coming towards the end of his career. But we've never definitively said that he's retired, and because he's not, he can still contribute, and we've kind of always had the thought process and the understanding that if I feel that you can do better than what we've got, then I'll use you. And some of that's been a little bit enforced with the bodies that we've had available. Certainly Saturday, playing centre half, we didn't want to be in that situation, but Harry Pitcher was ill, 24 hours before kickoff with flu, and Kenzie Mason failed a fitness test, so our hand was forced there. But with the little cameos where we've been using him as a centre forward, it just does something different. He just goes and unsettles defenders and uses his physicality and uses his brain and his know-how to create little things for us, whether that be scoring directly, which he has, or linking up for somebody else, and sometimes just his sheer presence can make space for somebody else, or just make something happen. So is it part of the master plan? No, but it's definitely useful. And as I said, as a rule of thumb, if I think it will help the team and us to either see out a result or get a result, then I'll continue to do it. The other benefit of him is he can play 3-4 positions. He can put the gloves on and go in goal, which he did as a kid. He can play centre half. He can play centre midfield, and he's a handful as a centre forward. As your 5th sub, if you like, you almost get multiple options by naming him, and that's certainly been of use.
You can certainly tell he's got fire in his belly after being shunned by Southgate for the World Cup. But it's to our benefit, isn't it?
He still loves it, and when he stands on the pitch. Oh, sorry. When he stands on the side of the pitch, he still sees things and views things as a player, which can be really useful as a manager. And he still has that passion for wanting to go and help the football club. And if that means that he's doing that as a player, then so be it. And that's why we've never said, look, well, he's retired now. He sits this side of it, because he can contribute. And bearing in mind, he didn't do a pre-season, so he was always, in terms of having that in the tank, he hasn't got that. So he's still been able to get himself to a level that he can contribute, which I think is good. And yeah, look, if it means that I'm doing it regularly, then I'll be doing it regularly for a purpose, because he'll either be contributing, or I think that he can, and that's ultimately our aim, is to win games of football, and that he's aligned to that, and he'll do everything he can when he crosses that white line to do that for us. So, and I think from a playing perspective, you probably say old school if you like, but I think that's good for some of the younger players to see that, and obviously he's my brother, so I've seen him throughout his whole playing career. Never technically the most gifted, but it always contribute. It always influence a game with the things that he's got. In terms of being vocal and effective that way, and his physicality, and he will always give everything that he's got to get you over the line. And for a young player who can see that and see how much it means, even at that age, and won the things that he's won and played the games that he's won, I think that's a good role model, and I think that enthuses and inspires the young boys that we've got coming through as well.
In the stands lately, we've been witness to singing and chanting the players' names and stuff. Do you think the players have responded to that? Is that something that's pleased you and the players?
Honestly, and I'm not just saying it because you're here, this is conversations that we've had with players and as a staff group, it makes a huge difference. It really does, because it makes it feel like a football club. And I feel that there's momentum, and that group seems to be growing all the time. And it gives the players a lift. And look, we haven't had the wins in the league recently to probably reward that, but it definitely motivates you. It definitely makes it feel like you're part of something. And yeah, from our side of the fence, the more we can do that, the more that we can make Plantation Park a difficult place for teams to have to come, the better. And it's long may it continue. And I think obviously we're in a nice situation at the moment where Norwich City Football Club aren't playing, and we've got World Cup. But it's the more people that we can get in there and make an atmosphere, the better.
Xander Moody Stewart, are you able to tell us a bit about him?
Yeah, Xander's at Langley College, so he's at the school there. He's in his final year of his studies there. He's from Bermuda, so he's a Caribbean lad, and he was one that was recommended to us by Grant Holt, who's one of his tutors there. And at the time last year when we had him, we watched him in a few training sessions. He had a little bit of unavailability because he was going home, and sadly around that time his father passed as well, which was obviously unexpected and naturally a traumatic thing for him. So we probably could have seen him more last year, but we were mindful during the summer that we were always going to get him back in at some point. And we really like him. He's different. He's very intense with his pressing. He's got good technical qualities. But what I really like about him is his movement in the box and how he gets across people. And because how we play, we like to get crosses in. We felt that he would add something to us. And he's only played 2 or 3 games so far, but I think we've seen already. He's got his first goal for the club, but I think we've seen that he can give something different to us. It was unfortunate for him last week because he was a bit ill and he had a bit of a neck problem. And with the situation in Saturday, we had to sort of play him really. So that was a bit unfortunate on him because I didn't think that was necessarily the best reflection of him on Saturday. But we know when he's fit and well that he's a handful. He's a strong. He's not the biggest of players in terms of his height, but he's a strong boy. He can look after himself and he can look after the ball. And yeah, I think he's been a good asset for us because he gives us a bit of a different option in our forward line.
Obviously, we've got the big Vase game to look forward to on Saturday. Following that, I think currently scheduled, we've only got 3 away games scheduled until March. Does that affect your preparation?
Yeah, I mean, look, playing in front of your own fans is always preferable, of course. We obviously had a run of away games at the start of the year when the pitch weren't ready. And I think when we get into March, we've got a run of 4 or 5, I think, straight away games. So ultimately, you have to play everyone twice. I don't think that we've probably used it to the advantage maybe we should have done so far. But I also think there's a little bit of a mentality from teams that when they come to our place, they know that they're playing a good side in the main. And I think that does affect how teams play against us at home. Probably happy to sit in a little bit more and ask the question of us to break us down. And that's something we need to get better at. And we need to find solutions more readily to doing that. I think we've found ourselves this year in a bit of a habit where we've conceded first a lot as well, which doesn't help because that just aids to that being able to sit in and protect. So there are a few things that we need to do better with that advantage, because sometimes when you play away and the onus is on them maybe to come and attack you as the home side a little bit more, you don't have that. And I think, we've seen that with England and their 3 games in terms of, the first 20, 25 minutes against Iran, sat in, England got the first goal and made it a comfortable win. The USA do exactly the same thing, albeit a better side, more athletic, and could do it with more quality. 11 men behind the ball was really difficult, and that's for world-class players, a handful of world-class players to have to do that. They couldn't find the solutions. And again, last night Wales did that for the first 45 pretty much. And again, you get the first goal, and you could score 4 or 5. So, whilst I'm not saying we're comparable to the players in terms of the scenarios, I think you can see some correlation there in terms of the type of scenarios that they've had to face and how difficult that can be when teams just are happy to sit in and take a point or protect a lead.
Looking ahead at Saturday, a big game for us. Why should people come down to Plantation Park on Saturday?
Well, I think it'll be a game where the emphasis is to go and win the game for both teams. There's no extra time, and it goes straight to penalties. Nobody really wants a match to go to penalties. So I think if you see a scenario where you're drawing with maybe 10 to go, I think both teams will likely risk and go for it. And unless you've been particularly under the caution, you might take the flick of the coin. But yeah, I think that format is exciting because you don't get a point. There is no draw scenario. So it's a game where both teams, albeit us being the underdogs, have to go in it and prepare to go and win the game. And I think that makes for an exciting watch. They're a good side. I've watched plenty of them now and seen what they're good at, and I've also seen some things that I think we can highlight for us to try and get an advantage. And I think when we play to the levels that we can get to, which, in fairness, off the back of November, on a lot of the time we've got to good levels as a general rule of thumb. I think it's in for a good game. I think you'll see 2 sets of honest players looking to play attacking football to try and get into the next round of the cup. So, yeah. And also, what else are you going to do? There's only so many times you can go to home base or B&Q. So, for an hour and a half of your time, I think it's good value for money and come and support your local team.
Absolutely. Well, I can agree with that wholeheartedly. Hope to see as many listeners as possible at Plantation Park on Saturday. And thanks, Steve, for your time.
No problem, Joe. I hope Paul is okay and he's not been eaten by his dog. But his camera went off some time ago. So
I'm still here, but yeah, I'm not
good. Good. Well, yeah, we'll see you in the stand on Saturday then, Paul.
Yeah, the dog says bye.
Thanks, gents. Speak soon.